we are Lunos. Lunos is a business that helps businesses from idea to product market fit. So we do work with an awful lot of startups, but we also work with a lot of businesses that are already existing. And we're going to actually really show you why it's important to be a continuous part of your world. We met at Nokia, so one of the biggest product businesses that did exist, and I can always have a more personal conversation about our feelings towards Nokia and their demise, and maybe what they didn't do or did do within that. But we have 35 years of combined experience. Obviously, we started as very small children, but our experience extends really across product ideation, design, development, management. I've done a little bit of a tenure across business development, but within that, we've done a lot of work within growth and strategy, and that really brings us to our world today. James, could you go to the next slide?
Yes, should be.
So for us, the main aspect of our approach is we want to democratize the way that product market fits. There are many interpretations about really what it is, and we actually stress tested, as we started, all the theories that exist out in the market. And yes, there are a lot, and a lot of people that believe very strongly that their theory is the right one. What we effectively wanted to do is find out how we could create accessible frameworks, how we could be able to manage the fact that founders come in many levels, many skill bases, many existing knowledge and experience industries. So how do we kind of level the playing field and make this something that all can do? So we're very, very about being pragmatic, but being very action-led and very outcome-led and demonstration-led. So the way we work with businesses is in a very collaborative form, whether you need to be incredibly handheld or just being given some structure, because and that seems to hit well. But really, our biggest mission out there is to rewrite some of these ridiculous narratives that kind of exist in the startup world. I mean, the one that's most horrifying for us is someone comes up with an idea, maybe collects together a whole lot of cash that they have available, goes straight into building it, and then goes, shit, we have no, sorry, excuse my language, but we have no idea who the customer is. We built it and expected people to come. And this on its own is the misnomer that we want to kind of really throw up in the air and kind of change to be more resilient-led. And I like to talk about building camel businesses, which is if you can survive a drought and you can kind of be resilient in your proof and demonstration and almost kind of create a more sustainable business that's not reliant on funding for one way, or you're able to demonstrate that market potential rather than just trying to convince someone. So that's us. So next slide, James. So quick question, which is, where are you guys on your product market fit journey? It's not one we need you to be completely precise on the chat. If you could maybe indicate what are your stages. And as I kind of started off, this is a new style of set of slides, constantly reiterating ourselves and trying to make it a clearer story. So what we would do, forgive us on any kooks and quirks, but also on top of that, any feedback on what really stood out and maybe anything that we should definitely omit for future slides, then let us know. So let's get into the actual interesting content. Next slide, please, James. So what is product market fit? So actually, I prefer to call it market product fit, because actually effectively the problem with the term product market fit is it kind of suggests that you need to do the product before the market. Some say it's impossible to have product market fit from day one. And actually, I've never seen a business that actually has managed to achieve it. But effectively, the start of product market fit, and this is like probably the easiest place to start, is initially when you're thinking about your business, is there a person or set of persons who ultimately are looking to solve the problem that you're trying to meet? So that really is kind of the primary. And then why would anyone use it? And then ultimately on to that, why would they return and pay for it? So that's really kind of in its earliest nutshell. And really it's taking any knowledge that you can learn from the market, and whether you're dealing with an underserved element of the market or an overserved, but who is that customer? What is their current world? rather than where you're trying to take them and what problems really exist within that. And then you move on over to the other side with that learned insight, that owned insight, rather than what you believe to be true, that you know to be true. And then it's understanding what first iteration of that solution is what the market wants. And then you can build your routes to market and the business models that go underneath. What PMF or product market fit is not. It's not just signing up a few customers, and it's not just getting a few paying ones either. That's a sign and a signal of an indication towards product market fit. That's not having got it. So within the routes to market, though, you know, and I think this is where we find, or we get challenged, where people get quite assumptive about just the word product and market, but actually really underneath that all, and we're really looking at channel and tactics and value prop and messaging and the whole narrative that's going out. So really it's an all-informing kind of exercise, and really what you're trying to do is get from a place of switching from what your bets, what you believe to be true, to what you actually know to be true, and being able to demonstrate that. Next slide, please, James. Why it's so important? Well, I mean, I think I've kind of highlighted a few of the key ones there, but it really just shows that you're solving a problem that the market cares about and are willing to pay for it. But really, fundamentally underneath that, it's building a very sustainable business. And I kind of talked about resilience earlier, and we like to talk about a camel slightly churlishly. But in this day and age, in these economic times, being able to kind of actually create a business and really truly know that you have understood everything before you throw all your arsenal into growth, because it prevents that scattergun approach. It just avoids you spending money in the wrong places and allows you actually to kind of go bottom up on creating a business that can survive any storm. But within that also, you're really reducing you're starting off your experimentation within your marketing and your sales. And actually underneath that all, you're really helping inform your tech and your product team, and you're all singing on the same hymn sheet of the customer you're working towards and what they're trying to achieve. And I think sometimes it gets forgotten that that is an overarching need that everybody needs to know, and we all need to be working on the same thing. Better retention is one which is really, that is the indication of your product market fit. If you can't prove that there is actually a returning, loyal and delighted customer, then effectively you are working very hard each time to acquire a new customer, and it's costing you probably a fortune. So where we try and kind of sort of aspects of getting to a place of getting a beautiful product and service that people want, but it's how do you keep them there, and what is it, the extra value and well, just the extra engagement and experience that someone's going, I just love this and I never want to go. In fact, one of the best litmus testings with product market fit is to almost go out to your customer base and go, if I took this away tomorrow, how would you feel? Very disappointed, a little bit, or not at all? If you've got over 40%, you're getting to close product market fit. Now, underneath all of that is the narrative, how you're talking about the product, what you're saying, and being very confident about saying it, going, oh, well, we think it's these guys. Now, when you're going into your funding rounds, having that kind of confidence is absolutely paramount. But also, look, over and above that, if you're trying to attract a C-suite, if you're trying to attract actually partnership, if you're trying to attract lots of different things, if you can't talk about this stuff in a really, really powerfully, going to use the word again, confident way, then really you're putting yourself at a disservice. So I'm going to now throw you over to James, who's now going to take you through to how to get into your product market fit. But before I do that, I just want to ask, is there any questions that are looming up that you either keen to know or wasn't very clear? No? Be good? Okay, let's keep going.
Oh, good. Awesome. Cool. So yeah, in terms of getting to product market fit, so there's some key things to kind of start having a bit of an eye out for, and keeping a look at your metrics and things that are happening in terms of your product. So there's a loose kind of scale here, but there's that sense of saying, right, at a very early stage, right, it's about kind of getting those initial like waitlist signups and users opting in, saying, yep, really love the look of what you're working on here and really want to be kept informed. and then all the way through to getting to a place where you've got obviously customers paying, customers then referring others, maybe through some kind of incentivized referral program, or in a more ideal world and better product market fit perspective, it's more organic, so word of mouth, etc. And then the ultimate place is those referred users are then signing up and ultimately then becoming paying users, and hopefully then referring others as well, and a whole kind of nice virtuous cycle that will come from there. So as I say, this is a bit of a strength indication gauge, depending on exactly where you are on your journey. But ultimately, product market fit is it's more of a, it seems it's a lot more of a kind of a feeling rather than necessarily it's a significant, like, we've definitely now got it for sure. There'll be metrics and those kind of things that are all trending in the right direction, but it's not necessarily you've hit an exact moment in your journey. I think it's just that culmination of a bunch of activity, and I guess the key thing is that it's this sort of momentum shift, going from a place of you really kind of pushing and driving to get new customers onto your product or your service, whatever it might be, through to a place where you're now almost trying to keep up with exactly what's going on. So the market is really demanding, and you're really trying to keep up with them. So it's that key piece, switch from that demand into supply side of things, and you're really struggling to kind of keep up with maybe requests or do any fixes that need to happen or adding resources. But ultimately, money is still lovely, like just piling up in your bank account, and you're still kind of continuing to grow. And then I guess the other ultimate side is that sense of the inbound side of the business starts to kind of really blow up. So it's that sensation that you get floods of signups and you can't necessarily easily explain where they've come from. You could, in theory, turn off paid media and you would still be getting a whole bunch of signups just because that inbound and that word of mouth. So back to that kind of strength gauge that we had on the last slide, those sort of elements really start to come into play. And then in terms of, there's almost like three kind of key areas that that we believe that really sort of makes up this product market fit. So it's this combination for sure is obviously, as we've kind of termed it here, your offer, which is that kind of culmination of the product and the pricing, the customer and the market segment that you're going after, the value proposition and the messaging. Obviously, the piece around the route to market, the channels and tactics that you're using, trying to get to a place where you've got a lot of inbound and organic that's coming rather than being entirely reliant on paid media. And then obviously that conversion rates through to paying customers is high, but the other kind of really key piece within this is in around retention. So once you've got people coming on to your products or your service, it's keeping them happy, and ultimately keeping them coming back to get strong engagement, reducing that churn rate, all important churn rates. So from a B2B point of view, you're really trying to look for less than 3%. And I think B2C is less than 5%. And then, as Caroline mentioned earlier, so from a product market fit score, as a survey, so she mentioned the question about being ultimately very disappointed if they could no longer use the service. You're trying to hit that magical 40% or more figure. So it's that culmination of all three of those. And once you kind of get to that place, you really start to get to this product market fit zone. But something else we really wanted to try and distinguish, and I think that's part of what seems to always be a bit of a not sort of confusion, but I suppose the misinterpretation, I suppose, in and around product market fit is this is kind of like you just get there and then you're done. Is I think kind of the place we're really kind of coming to is this. It's more of it's continuous. This isn't just like one and done. Arguably, you could completely go out of product market fit. So markets change, so you get the delights of pandemics that happen and suddenly start killing businesses overnight. So you could arguably go out of product market fit because now there's no market for what it is you're doing and things change. So kind of what we're trying to show here, appreciate there's a fair few things on screen here, but what we're trying to say is that at an early stage, this is really about that problem solution fit. So really trying to find those customers that really have those kind of with like hair on fire moments, and finding those people with a big enough problem, making those people really happy, working that piece out, and then working out how you're going to find more of those people and start doing that at a piece of scale. And then getting to that place where you've got that repeatable playbook, which is then almost like that initial product market fit place. But then you're more than likely to start looking at expanding into new areas. This could be different customer types. This could be expanding into different territories and countries, etc. This could be bringing in new products, product lines, or completely going into different verticals. So at that point, you almost then hit another moment of product market fit. So again, it's almost going back to first principles and saying, right, who are the customers here? What are the problems that they're facing? What are our routes to market for these people? And just making sure that that does still play out. That for sure, there's probably going to be some overlaps, but it's just that sense of saying product market fit is a bit of a kind of a continuous cycle. And then as you kind of achieve certain of these stages, you hopefully then start to unlock those funding rounds if that is part of your narrative and your journey that you're trying to aim towards. So in terms of this is very much our kind of world and our bread and butter, all around experimentation and how you can try and experiment to product market fit. I've talked a little bit about this from that previous slide. So it's really focusing on these kind of three pillar areas. So as I say, from a customer point of view, is those distinct set of customers with those like hair on fire moments, as I mentioned, the offering and the product that you're going to put towards them. So yeah, the combination of either a service or a piece of technology, the value proposition, the pricing, all those kind of different elements, and kind of packaging that piece up, looking at the routes to market and how ultimately you're going to get in front of those people and try and get it to a place where you're driving more demand than it is you constantly driving from like a sales effort or doing lots of outbound, etc. So all that piece around like the value prop, the messaging, kind of really looking at current alternatives and how and why you're better than those. And really kind of getting down to those channels and tactics of how you're doing it. But it's that continuous cycle that you're kind of going through. So really doing a lot of experimentation and iterating based on the learning that you're getting from the market. So to try and make it a little bit more trackable. So there's a whole bunch of things in Fit that you can kind of track along this way, but based on five kind of key areas. So stuff around acquisition, so ultimately kind of getting signups, activation, so trying to get those customers who have signed up through to a moment where they're really experiencing and seeing the true value of your product or service. From a revenue point of view, and ultimately kind of obviously getting yourself paid. Retention, so keeping them happy, and then referrals, boosting and trying to get that word of mouth. So there's probably a few things there that I'm sure many of you would have heard of, but if I pick out a few, I guess, so percentages around free to pay, obviously you really want to try and boost and get those down as low as possible. So alongside that, in terms of lifetime value to CAC ratio, I think that's a classic one that seems to come up a lot in around this area. So if you've got a ratio of 3 to 1 or higher, that's a really good product market fit signal. If it's just any kind of struggling in terms of getting these numbers up, from a revenue perspective, typically this is going to be a place where customers aren't really seeing the true value of the product. So there's potentially not enough, the pain may not be big enough, or maybe the user experience isn't working, or you really need to kind of maybe go back to some first principles and really try and understand and work with the customers that you may already have. I think, yeah, if is anyone, I guess I'll take a little moment here rather than me sort of reeling through all of these. Obviously a fair few here. Is there anyone got any questions? I think I just saw a hand go up. Anyone got any particular questions on any of the items that are mentioned here?
Laura, you go first.
Thank you. I've actually got loads of questions.
Okay.
It was like ching 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 as you were going through, and so just a little bit of background on our product. First of all, I know exactly what you mean with the build it and they will come. That was the attitude of the product team before I came on board, and I came and sort of looked at it and thought, no, you've actually built completely the wrong thing. But amazingly, you hit on some really good touch points. Our product is unusual, I think, in some respects, in that we have beneficiaries and customers as two distinct groups. So it's a health tech app. It is patient-centric, but our customers, our paying customers, come from within service, or our expectation is from research and pharma, etc. So we're building a product for people that has inherently a value to organizations that are not the primary user. So I had a few different questions, and I suppose the one that I'm and where we are in terms of our product market fit is that we've sort of launched under stealth. We've been having long-term conversations with health agencies, and we have got to that point where we're having more referrals from those agencies than we can possibly keep up with. So it's tremendously exciting in that way. But obviously my focus is to think about how we retain ordinary people, patients and carers that are using the app. And I just wondered what kind of metric you would, I think you might have very quickly gone through the percentages that you would be looking for to see in terms of like user engagement before you really think about sort of saying, okay, now we would scale and go outwards. And what kind of period of time you would be, you know, is it like you're looking for a monthly active user? And I think I've seen some stats that a lot of people will sign up to a healthcare app, and they'll use it for sort of 7 to 10 days, and then the attrition rate is spectacularly high within this segment. So what would be the markers that you would think, okay, you've had retention over a 3-month period, you've now sort of built that habit in? And I wondered if there was anything standard or if it's a judgment call.
Yeah, I think that it was going to be, you slightly led my thoughts there. I think there's an element of, I think, engagement rates, retention rates, and those kind of things. The good metric varies a hell of a lot to kind of depending on the product and the service and those kind of things for sure. So I'd be happy to have maybe another discussion on this, and maybe I can try and pull some more specific data for your scenario. But I guess the other things to maybe look at is just that sense of trying to have some conversations with those customers and really try and understand, like, particularly the ones that maybe aren't returning. If you can, obviously, kind of get in front of them, try and really understand well what is going on for them that is making them like not continually come back. Appreciate maybe once they've made that decision that they don't want to come back, maybe they don't want to be bothered, and that might be something in its own right. Because I think kind of coming back to I think Caroline may have mentioned a little bit around, like, we talk a lot about like aha moments within products. So it's that sense of once you get a customer in, so I guess we're related to what we've got on screen here, that activation stage. So someone's signed up, and the activation journey, so getting them through to that moment where they really see that like core value of the product. I think that's really, really key. So I guess there's an element of maybe just trying to have a look and understand, well, do we believe that those customers are getting to a moment where they actually truly see the value of what it is that we do? Or do they almost kind of get to that place of looking at the product and it kind of feels like, I don't know, this is more of like a vitamin product rather than actually this is a painkiller, if you kind of understand that analogy. It's that sense of this is actually really more of a nice to have. I could see it might do something for me, but it's not solving a big enough problem for me. So back to my moment earlier about talking about like hair on fire moments. Like if it's a really huge problem for me and this product suddenly falls in my lap, then if I see that value, I'm more than likely to be like, right, this is amazing. This is now part of like forming habits and those kind of things. Because I've talked about this a little bit with a few founders recently, is that sense of when you're bringing a new product or service into the world, like in some respects, you're trying to shift your customers from their current way of doing things, which for sure may not necessarily be achieving their goal, but they're on some kind of path to potentially a whole new place where you're kind of saying, come over to our world and check out our product because we'll make it all better, kind of thing. but ultimately they're still kind of somewhat stuck in their current way of doing things. So something I think particularly for like early stage startups, I think it's an element of trying to say, well, how much can you really understand what that current world looks like, and how can you try and almost like seamlessly integrate yourself into that world. So the heavy lift, quote unquote, for the customer is minimal to none, but they can then start experiencing the value that you can start creating without suddenly having to go, oh, I'm now in this place. I now need to go to this new product that I've just remembered in the last 5 days. Because then, it's that big habit shift, which I think
to
is
lift
really,
up
really
on that
challenging.
one, you can sometimes find when you're focusing much more in their current world, opportunities that maybe have been slightly ignored, but are far more in that. And I suppose there is a chasm often from what exists to what's new, and it's about minimizing that relationship. In fact, we talk about a very good example. In fact, I'm just going to jump on it now. Netflix did a fantastic job back in the day of foreseeing that they're like, well, our customers are here, but there's something cool over here to take them to. But how do we get those very early adopters, those ones that are trying to solve this right now, focus on actually what they can give us as knowledge to push that needle forward? But at the same time, there might be something very basic that you can actually deliver that builds that know, like, and trust towards you, and make sure that people go, you know what, these guys, I get them, and I get where they're going to take me. So I'm willing to see what that is.
Yeah, and it's so interesting because one of the there are two things that I've sort of been thinking about, and I'm unsure how to kind of approach the testing for them. So one of them, I think Noom is a really good example of this, of like increasing that friction in the customer sign up journey, so that there is a lot of information that comes forward, that you better understand your customers. And I suppose from our perspective, that would be a huge amount of development work to implement that change to that sort of sign up journey. But I know that our sign up journey is wrong. So I'm just wondering how you could approach that testing and see sort of like the impact that it has on engagement, or whether the approach is just to look elsewhere in the industry and say, well, this is what's working. And then similarly, one of the things that I think about is, because we've got lots of our users, our anticipation is that they will have very, very different needs in terms of interacting with technology. So those things are like voice to text. We're dealing with patients that have health concerns, and that limits the use of the way that they can interact with things. So, how do we make that leap of sort of is there and I appreciate this may be a bigger conversation outside the group, but that's sort of where my mind is going, of how do we, what we're trying to test is the long-term value, and how we would approach that in a kind of responsible way in terms of the budget as well.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would say at this point, looking at that customer life cycle in detail and actually understanding what their relationship is, from awareness to that acquisition point, which is where and I think there's a difference there, because in a sense, people are being told to go there. It's not like they're kind of finding it by themselves. But even then, there's still intrinsic things that maybe we can kind of ask them to do or put in front of them. But then when they come onto the onboarding, and I suppose it's analogy we use is a bit like a bowling ball. So you put the aha moment they're trying to get to, and you just try and take away any steps that prevents them getting there very easily. And that might be at that point that they're just getting to some information very quickly about their specific ailment or their specific issue. And then from then, we're then kind of sort of trying to minimize them being overwhelmed, or to the point where they're giving you back what you need. But I think this is I'd love to carry this conversation, because I'd love to find out more about this product. It sounds really interesting. But thank you, because it really helps us actually now maybe explain to the rest of the group.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks.
It's a pleasure. But please do connect with us.
Yeah, happy to pick that up. I think there's a few points there that we can have a bit of a conversation on.
Thanks for your question, Laura. As these things tend to happen, Laura, one of Laura's points was what I was going to raise. So we'll get back to your presentation, please.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, in all fairness, we were going to sort of jump into some case studies, so we could still pause a little bit and take another couple of questions if anyone wants to, or we can jump in. Happy
Any
to
questions,
keep it a little
guys?
bit more.
actually the examples are quite good. They might, sorry, they're quite good. The examples are quite good at sometimes generating conversation because they're real life examples of businesses we know.
Cool.
One quick question. One quick question.
Yeah, go for it.
How much would this be, in your view, altered or changed if you was launching something completely new, or you were disrupting what I would call a very unsexy traditional sector? So, for instance, we had a brilliant talk on Tuesday night by Zach Ratner, who's out in California, and he was talking about AI, and he's chosen the path of going into the latter, so disrupting sort of traditional industries. He's gone into the removals business, but using AI, and it's working. How would you alter all of this if you was looking at the two alternatives?
I mean, you might see from my strap, we do actually talk about business validation and innovation as well. And I'm just going to kind of just go to the basics of it's the same process. If you're disrupting, challenging, trying to provide something that's kind of underserved or even overserved, you know, the primary place to start with is where is the market, whether it is looking at adjacent with something that doesn't directly exist. You'll always find something that has a basis of that someone can relate to, because not so brand new that it doesn't exist at all. Now, AI works fantastically for us. And in fact, we love an AI chat, because an awful lot of the time AI as the term is there's a whole lot of like actually what it means underneath it, and is it can it query something well and bring back a result. And so then it's like, you know, what queries this and who is the person that's going to receive the result. So there is, you know, there's always going to be fundamentally within any business or anything that you're exploring. And look, we work with existing businesses that are looking to let's say identify product market growth. So it might be the brand new thing they're after, not necessarily what they're trying to build today. And all of this builds towards, I mean, James and I were talking about product-led growth earlier, and like kind of what that kind of means within the big scheme of the market as well. And like, you know, having a mechanism that actually almost allows your business to grow by itself as you're then looking at the next thing. But disruption, sorry, going back to your initial thing, Ollie, about kind of disruption can only really work well if you're disrupting something that helps someone in their current world go towards where they can disrupt a new world, let's say. So it's minimizing that gap between, and no one, I'm going to say, you get very early tech adopters and you get people that by attribute and personality type are very into wanting brand new. But my God, holding on to them as you develop that, that's the hard bit. And so the grunt work always exists.
Very, very fickle.
So then it's managing, how do you meet those guys to continue delivering value as you're building towards early adopters and maybe the, you know, a more mass market.
Thank you very much. If you love AI, watch Zach's video. It's amazing. If you've got access to Slack.
Yes, absolutely.
Watch it. It is unbelievable. Plus, at the end of this month, we've got Giancarlo, who's AI master, a Zen master, and he's going to be delivering his demystifying AI for your business. So he's going to be on I think the 29th or the 31st, something like that. So
very good.
That'd be terrific.
Yeah, so it's an interesting area for us, because we're also looking at how we can, or how we can work with clients, and arguably that our clients can leverage AI to rapidly experiment with ideas as well. So obviously everything that we talk about is that sense of, well, how can AI help you experiment and iterate and get market learning even faster as well, rather than necessarily just going out and building AI products in its own right. But yeah. Very interesting area. Very good. I'm sure you all may have just read this slide now that's on screen about Airbnb, but yeah, I'm sure you all know about Airbnb. But I guess, yeah, the key thing that we were mentioning here is like, this is a great lesson in the sense of doing things that don't scale. Classic kind of startup quote. These guys originally started just renting blow up mattresses during conference season to initially explore the idea. They then found a couple of interesting ways of somewhat hacking Craigslist, in the sense of adding their listings onto Craigslist, even though there wasn't a direct integration, but also they manually reached out to everyone who listed a rental on Craigslist and basically then said, well, can we chuck it onto Airbnb and those kind of things. Then they're kind of almost at one of their key moments where they really started to get to this product market fit and rapid growth stage, which you can see from that graph at the top right corner. They started focusing heavily on like kind of making their listings like attractive. So they started doing the free photography services for everyone, adding listings, which really helped them to rapidly start growing. Some of you may know they randomly also started selling some cereal during Obama's campaign. Nice little reflection of that as a little picture of it just down the bottom. And then also, yeah, just did a lot of community growth, incentivized referral programs and content marketing, which I think, yeah, has some fairly kind of standard things. But again, just that sense of really focusing a lot on kind of doing the hard graft rather than just throwing money at paid media, for example, to try and acquire customers. So the second one we got here is a product called Segment, which some of you may or may not have heard of, particularly any maybe marketing people or potentially more product people. So Segment, as it is now, is essentially a product that, well, the visual kind of hopefully gives a bit of an analogy, but it's that sense of you may have different products, digital products. So this could be apps, this could be web services or web products and those kind of things that ultimately they're trying to track a bunch of things. So Segment kind of sits in between your product and a whole bunch of tracking tools. So whether that's Google Analytics, maybe like Facebook Market, not Facebook Marketplace, sorry, Meta ads platforms and those kind of things, and it can report all of those data points to all those different places, but it's just a central place to do it, and then you can do lots of really interesting things off the back of it. But that's not how it started. Originally, it was a product called Classmetric, which was all about trying to help students essentially kind of hit a bit of a button during a lecture to kind of say that they were struggling or felt confused, and then basically the professor would have like a real-time graph of seeing what's going on. But students just didn't use it. So it's that sense of like, this is a solution in search of a problem, even though they managed to raise 600K from YC back in 2011. They then pivoted to an analytics platform, so a little bit like Google Analytics, but very much more based on segmentation, slightly hence the name. But they couldn't get any customers after 12 months. And then they had 100K left. And basically over the course of exploring their first two iterations of the products, they had built this kind of data collection tool that what is now Segment, and so they kind of lent into that. They built a landing page, put a post up on Hacker News, which is off the back of Y Combinator, and it all just kind of went a bit nuts from there, should we say, and got acquired by Twilio in 2020 for 3.2 billion. So yeah, not a bad return from that 100K. Then the final one we've got, I think, Caroline, you're going to take this one. So
this is an interesting one because it doesn't necessarily, I don't have some great product market fit metrics that I could find that they're willing to kind of share with everyone, but it's a really great example of a business that was doing something and it was okay, but they had some unhappy customers, mainly because of this whole postal system, and the postal system let them down and not being able to control it. They just weren't happy about the whole late fees, and it was hard keeping that relationship going. But as they foresee the improvement of the internet speeds, the improvement of the fact that more and more films and TV was being put into streaming services, could they explore that? Where they were very, very clever is they didn't just kill their existing business as they were exploring and looking to see, would this be a good market for them? And actually where they were ultimately very clever is they kept the DVD guys happy. And as they were probably more and more introducing more features and services, especially because with their early advocates of Netflix, personalization and recommendations were coming up very high, they were pushing that over to the DVD service and just attracting those customers over. So actually at that point where they kind of switched it over, they looked unbelievable in the market. They looked like they had probably a better customer base than initially they would if they were starting from scratch. But then it was like, how do we make these guys happy? And actually their lucky stumble was almost trying to get people to share their password, their username and passwords, and get more and more people using it. That actually was part of their strategy. Then when they kind of did the whole school mistress thing of like, hey guys, you can't do that. Actually, you'd find that they did lose. They did have a churn, but it wasn't quite as fundamentally effective to their business that they thought it would be. Like me, I then paid for my dad's. I'm not saying I was illegally giving it away, maybe a little bit, but you know, it is also sometimes it's been incredibly creative and sometimes been quite tenacious. Is where product market fit can sometimes then be incredibly effective. But yeah, unfortunately, they're a little bit secretive about some of their more the curve. I couldn't find too much on their actual customer curve, but yeah, so really, I mean, we're at the end of our chat. What we would love to ask you is yeah, what were the kind of the elements that were the easiest things to learn that we've kind of shared, or the biggest takeaways, and where are your biggest product market fit challenges? But also ultimately, yeah, what more would you like to know or learn based on where you're at?
Peter.
Hello. Yeah, good presentation, and I can see where you're coming from. I mean, I'm from more of a traditional project management background and engineering and what have you. The two things. One is that I take it that the products can either come from something you've invented that you want to fit into the marketplace, and therefore you're going out to the market to find out where you can fit. And or the alternative is you've noticed a gap in the marketplace and you're developing a product for that marketplace. Is that's
yeah,
both?
no, it's because I do actually work with a few inventors or product businesses that have kind of almost created something based on, let's say, they may have built something for someone else and kind of seen a market for it, or feel as though there is a market and they want to explore that. Or they have invented something around a piece of technology or a piece of process which they know will be beneficial to that market. Now, again, we are doing the same kind of principles of you as an expert will know an awful lot, but where is the market right now? And so you might be a little advanced of that general thinking. So it's coming back to that place of, well, actually, have you built something that's too full fat? Do we need to reduce it down to something that is more accessible and more understandable to? And sometimes actually within that, not to be a little bit churlish with some of these examples, but we found, you know, it's actually called product ladders as an approach, but someone who's gone and built something that is all singing, all dancing, and actually when it came down to it, they only put one thing out in the market because that's actually what everybody wanted. Alongside another comparable of that is they've gone and tested in the market, and actually what people wanted was knowledge, not the actual thing. So actually their business is a community, not delivering an actual product. So that's that exploration can sometimes open your head to, well, they're actually here. So this is fantastic and we can build towards that, but it's a stepping stone approach rather than getting them straight there.
So in effect you are or I suppose the question is where you fit in with the more traditional project management. I mean, things like you go out there, you find out what the market wants, you make something for the market, we have a design freeze, then you look for improvements and things, and it's things like that. And I think one of the issues you're going to have with AI is AI moves so quickly that it can do iterations very quickly, and unless you capture where you've been and you know where you want to go to and all the steps in between, you can end up duplicating effort and going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I mean, another thing to kind of mention, Peter, is what we don't want to come in is with our big size whatevers and trample over and kind of kill any work that's been done, especially when you're working within teams that have the expertise to be able to go and do it very quickly. So we are all about rapid iteration, and it's about complementing what is already existing and what is happening, rather than coming and disrupting. So alongside traditional processes, we may be much more part of a discovery, but then what we are trying to instill is, could we constantly experiment alongside you building? So once you've built, can we get out there and get that test in someone's hands, whether it is a very small section of people, and just it's that continual learning. And our biggest tagline with that is either you win or you learn. So if we can try and instill that within any existing team, and look, James and I we're old enough to know waterfall and all that kind of, that's where we started our careers. So we get threading through those processes rather than stamping all over them. James, do you have anything to say?
I mean, I guess the other thing I was going to add to it is, I suppose one of the key secret sauces, I suppose, for us is that sense of we're constantly working and dreaming up new ways of how you can just go out and take some action. So we talk a lot about having this like bias for action, rather than kind of sitting behind closed doors, maybe in a nice ivory tower, coming up with this beautiful strategy and then massive project plan, etc., and then going, let's go and execute all of that. Whereas you might actually just be able to go out and take some action and run an experiment that will help inform and de-risk and maybe even de-scope some of that massive project plan, because it just doesn't make sense. So that, I suppose that's one of the key elements for us. It's really about, as I say, bias for action, running small iterative experiments that over time will compound and ultimately form into that final like potential delivery. But that could be different and wildly different based on you just kind of sitting in an ivory tower and coming up with a beautiful plan. But it's then what the market needs, rather than you sitting behind closed doors and just coming up with what you think makes most sense.
Or Peter,
So
we
really,
might sorry.
I was going to say, it depends on the company you're working with, doesn't it? What sort of teams they have in-house to do those sort of things anyway. But you'd integrate with the teams, with the traditional
Absolutely.
project management side.
And in fact,
100%. It's all about how we can all augment with them and work with resources that they've got. If they've got all the capabilities to do this, they just need that almost like impartial and experiment-led mindset to just help guide them, then we can play that role versus us being more
talk a
hands-on.
lot about facilitation at this point. It's facilitating teams, because often it's sometimes a lot of knowledge that they all have it might be cross-functionally, we're just helping, but high assumptions when we're kind of like, and then everybody understands, and it's not necessarily by going, oh guys, you've just ignored your high risk, your assumptions. But when you go, right, well, there are a set of assumptions, but there's always going to be the most high risk ones here. Are you sure you know what you're doing with that? That can be a great starting point.
No, thank you.
Thanks, Peter.